Welcome to Your Capital What's Up. I'm Chuck Wiger, your area state senator. Thank you very much for watching. Today I'm very happy to have as our guest the mayor of North St. Paul, Mike Kuehn. Mike, welcome to our show.
It's a pleasure, Senator. As I'm sitting here, I think a few months ago, I think we've hit our 55th anniversary of being friends and knowing each other. So it's a pleasure to be here.
55th, yeah, not the 5th, but
No,
the 55th.
55th.
And as you may deduce from that comment, viewers, we have known each other ever since childhood. And actually growing up, I was on 12th Avenue, a few blocks from the high school, and Mike on 14th there. Yeah. And so, we continue to know each other, and that's great.
Yes,
so,
yes it is.
And you have seen North St. Paul through your whole life. And in fact, let's talk about that life to the extent we can, and then into the challenges
Sure,
of
be
the
happy.
opportunities of being the mayor of North St. Paul. So, but Mike, you grew up in North St. Paul. Tell us about your parents when you were born, and share what you like.
I'd be happy to share that. And actually, what I'm really proud of is the fact that when the town was founded in 1887 by Henry Castle, Captain Henry Castle, three of my relatives, my great grandfather and his two brothers, my great-grandfather August Kuehn and his brothers William and Gottlieb, all came to North St. Paul from somewhere in Wisconsin. We're not sure, but they were German immigrants moving, looking for job opportunities. And I'm not sure about my great-grandfather August, what he did professionally, but great-great-uncle William ran a food storage locker in town, was a local businessman, and Gottlieb worked at the Luger Furniture Factory. So, the roots are deep. As you mentioned, I live on 14th Avenue, and 5 doors down from me was the home that my great-great-grandparents owned. August and I'm trying to think of my great-great-grandmother's name. I can't think of it right now, but Mary, August and Mary, and they lived there. And then my grandparents took over the home after they passed, and then the house is still there. My grandmother lived there until late 1960s. And so a lot of roots in the town. I grew up in town, as you mentioned.
We met your parents.
Sure.
Why did they decide to stay?
Sure. Well, I think my father was deeply rooted in the town as well. The Kuehn boys, there were 9 in the family. His oldest, nine. There were 7 boys and 2 girls. Excuse me, 8 boys and 1 girl. I'll get that correct. And my oldest, my dad was the second oldest. My uncle Eldon, the oldest, was killed in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II, so I never knew him. And then 1 died in his infancy. So there were 7 Kuehn relatives, aunts and uncles that were part of the community. Several still live here today. And I think my father felt well-rooted, and both of my parents worked for many years at the Standard Conveyor Company.
Would you like to share their names?
Sure. My dad was Bob Kuehn, and my mother's Irma. And my father's been passed away for about 20 years. My mother's still alive and doing well and going strong. So they both worked at the Standard Conveyor Company until it went bankrupt in 1981 then. And then
my dad was there too.
Yes, and your dad?
Many people.
Right, and your father and my father, I know, were childhood friends as well. And there's deep roots in our town, and you see that all the time, and there are a lot of families that have several generations living there. And I think that gives the town a lot of strength and a lot of history. And we have a proud history. And before I forget, I want to plug, next year will be the 125th anniversary of North St. Paul. And there is a committee that's been formed that is looking for ideas and different opportunities throughout next year to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the town. Smaller events, but we want to tie the school district in. The Historical Society is becoming involved, our business community as well. And I encourage people to keep their ears open for announcements as we proceed into next year, into 2012.
Excellent.
So we're very excited about that.
Right,
exactly.
Sure, right. A lot of great events you can
exactly. So I mentioned that, but then again, my parents. My mother was from Avon, which is up by St. Cloud area, and she came down during World War II when she graduated from high school to work, in the war industries, and basically started working at the 3M company on the east side of St. Paul and East 7th Street, and after that was where my father was working prior to start of World War II and his being drafted. And so they ended up meeting each other after the war at the 3M company. And then shortly after that, my father decided, because my grandfather worked at Standard Conveyor, they were doing some hiring, so my father switched from a 3M'er to becoming an employee of the Standard Conveyor, and after myself, and I have one older sister, Judy, who also lives in North St. Paul. Judy is married to Ken Cosell, my brother-in-law, and but after they had Judy and myself, my mother went back to work at Standard Conveyor then as well. So they met at the 3M company, and you know, they evolved then to becoming Standard Conveyor, largely because we lived originally on Oak Hill, which is right up adjacent almost to the Standard Conveyor factory there. So, and then we moved to 14th Avenue when I was about 4 years old, and went to, that's where we met, at Richardson Elementary, which was called North Elementary when we attended it. And
Miss Garrity.
Yes, Miss Garrity, that's right. And we
that whistle, she kept a tight ship.
Tight ship.
But a very passionate
That's right.
person for students.
Very much.
Richardson,
Yeah.
Superintendent.
Yep, who was a neighbor of mine who lived for many years on 14th and Helen Street.
Yes.
And then so I went to to North Elementary at that time for kindergarten, and then I went to St. Peter's. And then went to, back then it was affordable for a lot of families, and had the opportunity to attend Hill High School before it became Hill Murray, and went on to Hill. And then I know we kept crossing paths with Little League baseball games where the neighborhoods would compete and things, because I know you went through the public school system and I went through the parochial. But then I went to the University of Minnesota, and I got a degree in political science. Always had an interest in politics and government, so I feel blessed. I feel that I'm carrying out a lot of the things that I've always had a strong interest in doing.
And you worked, as you were going through school, I know you worked at Kindle's.
Yes, Kindle's grocery store, paid for my college education. I will always be grateful. That's right. I will always be grateful to Kindle's, and of course.
Just like, as you know, I used to be the paper boy for a lot of people, and when I ran for school board, many people in town
still remember
as their paper.
Sure, exactly. I understand that, and it was the same, I think, with my involvement originally in politics too. There are a lot of people that, like I said, the town has lots of deep roots. There's a lot of wonderful people there, and I worked at Kindle's for 7 years, through high school and college. My uncle Johnny, who was an institution there, he worked there 44 years, from a 16-year-old all the way till he retired. And Al Kindle, God bless his soul, was a great guy for hiring young men in town when they were high school age, who particularly had lost their fathers. And Johnny was about 14 or 15 when my grandpa Kuehn died, and I gave him an opportunity. And I feel very fortunate. Like I said, they paid for my college education by working those years at Kindle's, and again, met a lot of wonderful people, had lots of good stories I could tell about that whole store operation and all the great people that worked there. But we had a fun time. It was always a good group of people there.
And when you went to the university, you maybe had your appetite nourished a little bit into politics, and any people that may have touched you, like John Boland?
Sure, well,
got you involved, because there's people that encouraged us to get involved.
Sure, definitely.
In our life.
And that's exactly what I think inspired me when I was at Hill High School. John Boland, who then became our state rep and then eventually chair of the Met Council. And John is still active. I know he does lobbying at the Capitol for some organizations.
He represents a lot of schools in different areas, but you know, depending on the need. But he has a very impressive background in civic affairs as well as in schools.
Right, and when I was in high school at Hill, John was Boland was one of the teachers there, and he was also, I think, when I was a senior, running for the first time as a state for the state legislature. And then, so I got involved in his first campaign, but when I was a sophomore at the university, got involved in his second campaign, and I got to meet some of the other kind of people active in politics in the North St. Paul Maplewood area. And he had a big impact on my life. There's no question. And
I believe John too. He encouraged people to just get involved, and I say that to others, regardless of if it's a political party or
exactly.
Just be involved in something that you believe in.
Right, and take an interest in your government. We all have a vested interest in it, because it impacts our lives. And so I was inspired by him. There's no doubt, and I started to become involved in his campaigns in 1970 and 72 then, when I was a student at the U, and I enjoyed it a lot. Got to meet, like I said, a lot of people, got to learn a lot of about different issues that were things that I never knew about. I mean, things like environmental issues, which was starting to grow at that era.
So, but you decide, you stayed in North St. Paul yet, and you started working after college, after Kindles.
Right,
Which was a very good
exactly,
experience, but then
exactly.
you moved on, and tell us
Right.
about the career, and then we'll
Sure.
get to being mayor.
Sure, exactly. Well, I started working at the Metropolitan Council in, I think it was 1974.
Well, that's pretty stable since you're still there.
Well, it's stable, though I've made a couple transitions. I kind of end
Yeah.
back there. It seems like I end up back where I started from
Yeah.
all the time, but I enjoy it. And
Yes.
I worked there about 6.5 years in a role that was a community relations role,
Yes.
encouraging people to be involved in what the Met Council was doing. And then I had an opportunity to go work at the state legislature in the House of Representatives as a committee administrator
Yeah.
for, at that time, Dick Kostoris, who was our state representative after John Bolin, and a very good man. Then I had went back, had the opportunity to go back. In 1984, the legislature created what was called at that time the Regional Transit Board.
Yes.
And I was hired to be an employee there, working both in government relations and community relations. Elliot Perovich was the chair at that time, and former principal of Blaine High School, who then also had a long history of public involvement.
Yes.
And he was appointed by, at that time, Governor Perpich to be the chair of that organization. And I worked with him and other chairs over about 8 or 9 years. Then in 1994, the legislature reorganized the metro agencies and put operations and planning under the umbrella of the Met Council. So I kind of ended back being hired back. Ended back where I started from, and I'm very happy. I work in government affairs now at the Met Council, and in a position that is it's interesting position, because the Met Council is involved with a lot of issues: housing, sewers, parks, transit, transportation, environmental issues. There's just a lot of things that we're involved with then as a result legislatively as well. So I help support that effort.
So you've been involved in public policy issues, throughout your adult life.
Correct.
And you then became involved on some specific things in North St. Paul that led to your eventually running for city council. So tell us about maybe an issue or two that sparked your involvement.
Sure, I'd be happy to, because there was a pattern there that I didn't expect, but it came about. A big part of it was through athletics, as you did. We were both involved with the North St. Paul Athletic Association. I know you did a lot of coaching over the years. I did a lot of coaching, and then also I did a lot of officiating as a youth umpire for games and stuff.
Skated a lot at,
and then we did hockey, right. Then we also got involved. I got very involved in coaching and on the board of directors with the North St. Paul Hockey Boosters at that time, and got to know, again, a lot of wonderful people.
Yes.
And it was something that made me aware that there's a community, that they're really a community. It's a special community with a lot of dedicated, committed people. And then I also at that had an interest in running for the city council, just because I thought I could contribute something. And then was really spurred on in 1990. My father passed away in the spring. And I just felt I wanted to be more part of the town and contribute. And then that fall is when I first ran for city council in the fall of 1990, and was successfully elected, and have remained now in the city council as either a council member or mayor for 21 years.
Council? What's the secret? It probably helps to have been here
The
all your
secret
life.
is being here all your life, knowing
You
a
still
lot of
gotta work
people.
and
Right.
stuff, but,
Sure. I think a big key is knowing a lot of people, and having people understand that you have a passion for what you're doing, and that they feel that if you are elected, that you'll work hard at making the town a good place to live. And I think both the connections with my athletic involvement, connection somewhat politically, and just being a lifelong resident, all those things combined. And plus then you start knocking on doors. And I remember the first time I ran, there were some local issues that were out there. One had to do with sidewalk repairs and how the city was handling that issue. And some neighborhoods that was a hot button issue. But generally people would ask you, like, how long have you lived in town? I mean, we're a very small and an older town, and I think people felt that I had the credentials, or at least some credentials, that would make me a decent council member. So they gave me their vote, and I was fortunate enough the first time I ran to be elected.
And then how many terms did you serve before the unexpected vacancy for mayor?
Mayor Sandberg. I think I was elected to the city council, I believe, for 5 terms. I was in my 5th term when when unexpectedly, I remember the city manager called me one day at my office and said, "I've heard from Mayor Sandberg's family, and just want to let you know that he's not well at all." I mean, it came on very suddenly. I mean, he was diagnosed with acute leukemia, and I believe in February we heard that, and by the 20th, I believe 20th of April is the day that Mayor Sandberg passed away. And then I was the acting mayor. Right, exactly. 30 years as mayor.
And you mentioned, people knowing everyone, and of course, Bill was the penultimate of knowing families.
Exactly.
Where he went, and so he passed away, and so there's a big void, and you decided to go for mayor.
Right, and a lot of other people who thought they would also have an interest in the job, and we had a lot of wonderful candidates. I think 10 people filed, and I think 5 or 6 really actively worked hard at the campaign and attempting to be elected. And it was a special election. I remember it was on July 1st, a very unusual time for an election, but council felt it was important that we move ahead and that we did not appoint someone, that we actually elect a mayor. The council could have appointed a council member to be the mayor till the next general election, but we wanted to move ahead with that for the remainder of the 2.5 years of Bill's term that he was in. And again, on the election day, I was fortunate enough to receive the most votes of the 10 candidates and assume the mayorship, which very proud of.
The top 2 priorities when you reflect back on public safety, quality of our neighborhoods, jobs, and so many things, but what would be the top issues?
Well, for me, it's always been, and it's been this way since day one, and we keep working hard at it. To me, it's neighborhood stability, and that includes policing, that includes encouraging people, and sometimes they need a little bit more encouragement to at least reasonably keep their property decent so they don't negatively impact neighbors' property, and that the parents feel comfortable that their children can play in the neighborhood and not be overly worried about bad things going on. So I think
respect your neighbor.
Right, exactly. Very simple, basic thing, and making sure our neighborhoods are decent, and that's always been a high priority. And the second priority has always been for me is economic development, which is kind of tied to budgeting and other things, because as a small older town, we do not have a big tax base, and we need to work hard on keeping Main Street filled up, keeping things when we have opportunities to replace some of these things that need to be replacing, and trying to expand the taxes. A perfect example right now is the Anchor Block site down on 36 in McKnight. Anchor Block owns that, but we're trying to work with them to make them understand that it makes sense if we can get a higher density office park development or big housing development in that area rather than a Walmart or something, because of the tax base differences, because we really need to grow that, and we only have limited opportunities to do so. So those have always been the big issues, is neighborhood stability and economic development, to make sure we have a growing and a good tax base.
And you have a lot of dedicated volunteers, whether serving on commissions or other groups and partners working on this. Would you like to comment on both fronts for each of those issues as to what is being done, what's the plan to move us ahead?
Sure. We have, first of all, I think one of the biggest strengths we have in our town is volunteerism. I mean, I don't care if it's the athletic program or city government or their church groups or the food shelf. We have a lot of wonderful people. And in the city, we have 4 commissions. We have an economic development authority. We have other study groups and special commissions that all require residents to step forward and volunteer their time to be part of that. And we've been very successful in finding not only people willing to serve, but good and dedicated people. And in recent years, those groups have become much more active groups, not just advisory, but they actually go out and will help do things, such as the Park Commission doing a lot of work along with the neighbors in the Southwood Nature Preserve area on the south end of town. And the
for economic development, though, for example, you've had a very impressive blue ribbon group appointed. I know that when on your re-election, I believe you're unopposed, but you made that a point of having this type of a commission. And tell us about the key initiatives and where that's going. Sure.
Well, when I first became mayor, I created kind of, as you said, a blue ribbon task force to look at how we can better promote economic development. How can we get the business community involved? How can we get the financial community? How can we get the school community, education community, how we can get everyone involved. So we studied that issue for about a year and a half, which led to their recommendation, which was about the time I was reelected as mayor, to create an economic development authority. I was very fortunate, I feel, to have the acceptance of Jerry Bell, who's I think a very well-known resident of our community, has a good business sense, to be willing to chair that. And we included 2 representatives of the financial community on that first group. We included a member of our Main Street business community. We included a developer, and we included a small business person who lives in town but has a business elsewhere. And I think they have worked very hard now the last 2 years. Some of the things that we're working on is how can we retain and help our small businesses. One of the things we did...
First, keep what you have.
Exactly. And one of the things we did is contracted with what I think is an excellent group called the Metropolitan Consortium on Community Development, MCCD. Okay. And we paid them a small retainer to work with our businesses. They help them with financing, they help them with business planning. A resident who might have an interest in starting a business in the community could certainly work and meet with them. And they've had several folks they have met with. I just recently met with one of our small business people who develops dental products, and he's been self-financing the purchasing of equipment, and it's getting to be quite expensive. So we connected with those folks of whether there can be some financial support for that. They have some money to help finance, and they also bridge the gap with it. So I think that that's just excellent. We're also looking at clearing the area on what we are now calling Commerce Park, on the north, where the old school bus garage was, near 36 and 120.
Yes.
We think there's a great potential to redevelop that area. We've been working with the Burger King up there. There's another tin buildings up in there owned by the O'Neill Amusement Company for sale. We think there's a great opportunity to freshen and grow the tax base in that area. So we've been
you're looking at all the potential
Oh yeah,
pockets
the
of
downtown, that
opportunity.
pocket, the 36 in McKnight pocket, because that's a whole other world. That lends itself potentially to more some of the franchise and the chain types of places, just because the traffic counts are substantially greater there.
If someone was curious to learn more, you have a comprehensive plan, actually, and they could, maybe some of that would be on the city website.
City
They
website.
could contact you or the city manager's office and get
all of those.
the information. But it's it's very well documented as to what you're trying to achieve, and you have volunteers and others working to achieve that.
Yes, we're very proud of all the efforts, and you're correct on all that. People can call me, they can stop by City Hall. I believe the comprehensive plan and other documents are at our North St. Paul branch library at the community center. We have it online, so there's a lot of different areas there.
Retaining, creating jobs, but then very fundamentally a safe community where the neighbors respect one another. It's a safe place to live, to walk, etc. And we have a number of programs, whether it's the Neighborhood Watch, which has grown so big with all the different voluntary gatherings that are done, and it goes well beyond just in August with the National Night Out. But I know you've made that a high priority in your own neighborhood and others. So, like to speak to that briefly?
Sure. We now have, I think, about 3 neighborhoods that are well and officially organized. We have a lot of other block areas that are also very interested. What the police department has done is they've now have kind of grouped the city into 16 different areas, and our long-term goal is to have every one of those 16 areas have a very active crime watch group. And that's exactly what it is watching out for your neighbors and watching out for each other. My neighborhood, the Water Tower Park area, has had probably the longest standing group, and it's worked wonderfully. And I believe in that model, and we continue to want to grow that. And one of the city council goals for next year is to expand that into 3 more neighborhoods. So again, if anyone's interested in their neighborhood, contact me or City Hall. We'd be more than happy to start that process going for them.
Or the other council members as well.
Exactly.
Mention your council members.
I'd be happy to mention. I think we have a wonderful council member. I'll do it by seniority. Councilmember Walczak, I think, will be entering now her 12th year on the council, and she's the acting mayor, is the most senior member as well. Councilmember Bob Bruton was
in terms of number of years of service.
Yeah, exactly.
Jan, we got that right.
Exactly, and that's it. And Councilmember Bob Bruton is we start in the 4th year of his second non-consecutive term on the council. Of course, Bob brings us a lot of service because he was also for 4 years mayor of Maplewood back in the 70s. And then we have Councilmember Terry Furlong, who's been on. I think Terry's in his 2nd term now. Though the first term was to fill my 2.5 years of my council term after I became mayor. So Terry's been on about 4 years. And then Candy Peterson became a new council member last fall and been on the council for a little over a year now and has done a great job as well.
Like you, very deep roots.
Very deep roots and very committed council. We may have differences of opinion on how to do things, but no one, I think, and that's what I love about the council, no one can argue the fact that they all care deeply about the city and want to do what's best for the community.
There's commissions, volunteer opportunities. I invite the public to check out those opportunities, call you, other council members, to learn more. Just a couple of quick questions here at the end.
Sure.
Or a chance to comment. First, with the deep roots in the community, would you like to just say anything to your mom? And who you've been with throughout the years. You're still there.
Right, I'm a single guy, and
you've stayed in the family, and that's a very important core value, the family.
Well, there's no question.
What would you like to say to Mom?
Sure, well, no question. I mean, I thanks for this opportunity, first of all, and my mother has been a big strength in my life, as my father has, and they've taught me so many things about values and respecting others and caring about other people, and she's been a great inspiration. And Mom, I love you dearly. So.
Okay, and to the community for your service, any words of advice you'd like to share with them?
Well, it's
in addition to I love you.
Sure, yeah, I love the community, which I do. But in addition, it's a struggle. Our budget has been tighter. We work very hard at this, and
it's very anguishing. I know.
Right, and it's never easy. But I think the community understands that. So many of the people care so deeply about it. They're not afraid to give us their opinions, which is good because it helps drive us. We don't have the ability to do public opinion surveys and other things like they do at a national level. So sometimes we need that, and we need to have people question and ask what we're doing. And I think we have a great group of residents, and I'm proud to be a resident in North St. Paul.
Mayor Mike Kuehn, my friend Mike, since age 5. Thank you for your service.
My
Look
pleasure.
forward to many more, and we know you'll be responsive. If people have questions, comments, you'll do your best.
Right. Thank you, Senator.
Good.
Pleased to be here today.
Thank you, Mike. And viewers, if you have any questions of me, give me a call. My cell, 651-770-0283. For Your Capital What's Up, I'm Chuck Wiger. Thank you very much for watching.